It was an awkward meeting on Saturday. Like, for me, when I went into it, like, first thing the punters that are regular subscribers to my set would have noticed is it's the lowest amount of units I've employed on a Saturday meeting in years. Like, not typically on average, my set I'm betting anywhere between probably 70 to 100 units is the typical thing for a Saturday. I put a couple of marginal races in that I could have easily left off on Saturday, and the total was 43 units, which. Now the reason for that is there was just a number of races where, for me, the favourites were too short. They were awkward on the map, but I couldn't really hone in on one or two runners to beat them.
Yes, so there's no value in the rest of them.
So in that, the horses that were in that frame for me were Schism. I couldn't possibly get Schism that short, but I was in the end I got my hand up, so I was wrong.
I finished up betting against you as well.
I thought Data Point was too short, and the market sort of identified that, and he drifted.
Yeah, well, I finished up. I bet there, but had to win a well as it was, so it was an okay race, but not fantastic.
I just found the whole Serpetto race difficult. I could have marked him that short, but just didn't really want to, and was happy just to stay out of that race. The 2-year-old, I thought Vanderpeer was just a little bit too short. Albeit, it was a hard race to assess because it was hard to know exactly where to fit I did it again in. And
it sort of stayed. When I tend to sort of pass on those races, and I had a sort of big rating for Vanderpool, but I wasn't sort of sure if it was right. It was first use of the track at Maui, and other horses that come out, and I was sort of happy to watch the race and see. And the ratings probably at Maui's probably just a bit too high because it went pretty good the other day.
Yeah, what bothered me about the rating at Maui, Trev, was that Baltic Amber, I think it was, ran very similar sectionals, and it's a horse that, to me, is just a bit of a battler. Anyway, it'll make itself clear over time. I was sort of happy to save on Sullivan Bay, but really wanted to be against it, and was happy to spec Beatniks and really wanted to be on Divine Shields. But as we know...
Yeah, also Johnny likes everything. He's like Goldilocks.
Just right,
Just right. So
yeah.
He scratched his horse.
Track too firm will scratch.
And I think it would have, well, as long as it had a handle of the track, it would have won, I think, because it would have sat behind the lead and got out. Beatniks got too far back.
It's hard to imagine Divine Shields not winning. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the kind of day it was for me, and and then the results just didn't fall for us, and that's all she wrote. Like, the good result of the day for us was Moonlight's Choice. But anyway, moving on. So the races we've got to get to. Nikita. So the big... Nikita's won the race 6. The big talking point of the race was Brandon Stockdale's ride on Revolving Door, who was fairly well backed from the wide draw there, and for all intents and purposes should have won the race. What did you do, and what did you think?
I took 480 early in the afternoon. And
Revolving Door
marked it favourite, took 480, and was quite happy. It's just, it's amazing those races where you just sort of have a map and you just go, well, this will lead and this will say out loud. Everyone gets the same sort of map, some does a similar sort of thing. And I think Linda said, well, no, I'm going to be part of this. And she kicked up, and then Bo kicked up. And then I think what half caught Stockdale out, it was that Thompson, I thought, would cross and lead on Turo Cowboy. And when the others kicked up inside, he then gave up. If he kept going, then they probably would have gone. They went quick enough anyway, so they would have even got quicker. So he gave up, and then the kid's in no man's land. So it's I think it could happen to anybody. It's just one of those things. It's racing.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Linda's interesting because she's often prepared to give up the lead, but she doesn't like giving up outside the lead. If she's there, she wants to hold it. So she never gives up that spot easily, and you would think the other jockeys would be aware of that. My only criticism of Brandon is, look, it does happen, but once you're there, the worst thing you can do is heavily restrain your horse, because the other jockeys are going to see that they're not going to let you win anyway. You're much better off just going with your horse, let it get into a rhythm, and if you're caught wide, you're caught wide. And but going forward, back, and then trying to go forward again is almost that's very costly for your horse. So he would have just been better off sitting 3 wide outside the lead or whatever. And
it's just sad when it's the best run in the race and you don't get paid.
No, it is. Well, I ended up being on it reasonably strongly as well, Trev, and the annoying part for me was I was on Nikitas at the previous run, and his finish was lacklustre. I don't think he's done much more on Saturday, but he just was. Well, let's give Ben Allen credit. He was beautifully ridden. He got a beautiful run in the race. He was the only horse in the race that got a good run.
He sort of kicked up initially as well, so he was sort of making him work a bit, and then he sort of got in behind him.
He was in the box seat, but he didn't go to the rail. That was clever. So, yeah, he really...
He sort of made the others sort of work a bit for him.
He did.
And then he got the cover.
Anyway, they've just sort of run fair time there. Them 3-year-olds are all very even. Really, when they run against each other, it's really about who gets the best run. Revolving Door has a margin on those horses, but...
that probably next study will be over bets.
Yeah. Race 1 was... it's a pretty bland affair. Orient Line come off a booming win on the synthetic and reproduced it. Got an excellent ride from Craig Williams, who made ground along the fence as opposed to coming wide, which was... a sign that the track was going to race quick, and got the job done. Not much to say, really.
The data point was, I was so happy to oppose at the odds, and watching the replay again, he had to work really hard to beat Violent Showman. They both got beat 3.5 lengths, but he was back with Violent Show and didn't do much where, Williams was back there with him. He saved the ground inside. I had something on the leader for Papaya Prince, probably a bit too firm for him. It's probably raced for him at Sandown. Pretty, soft 5, slow 6. Race on the pace, he's fit.
Well, I didn't bet in the race. On my betting, that race was not on my betting plan, but I did decide to have a little spec at Mr. Optimistic. And, of course, Stephen Baster has to slaughter it, and Craig produces a gem of a ride to beat it. But anyway, I hope my subscribers backed Orient Line, because I actually marked at 440, and... I only didn't back it because I'm always a bit reluctant backing the horses coming off the synthetic, especially particularly if it's a big spike.
And it was
but it seems to have translated quite well this season.
Williams just has a knack of just getting those horses to the line.
And the other big talking point of the day was the Winburn race, because it was a big field. There's not a lot between them. They were in a tight bunch, and the leaders had gone for home early and were coming back on top of the field, and Dwayne's in behind them. He's come across their heels, clipped the heel, scrambled the field, so it was a very messy race, and the favourites in behind all that just, getting no opportunity at all. Again, it was Brendan Stockdale, unfortunately for him, and I just think on this occasion he was completely a victim of circumstances. I don't see what he possibly could have done.
No, I found it hard to market short. I sort of like to take on the kids when they've got to ride races. I was actually betting the race, and I was tuning for the leader. I was on it at $31 or something. But and then I fluked saving on the winner just as about to jump at $26. So. But I sort of liked a couple of things. I liked Denendre going up from coming out of the Ballarat Maiden, but they didn't want to be on it.
It should have been in the finish. Really. Yeah. I mean,
I'd
have to fall.
After you sort of watch the replay about 6 or 7 times, it sort of gave you a headache.
Yeah, exactly.
But just with the being, I don't know where he thought he was going in the first place. Dwayne, it didn't seem to be like a horse in front of him, and he was. So I think what happened was always possibly going to happen. So.
Yeah, well, he was trying to ease across the heels, and that meant he was going to push something else out of the way. But because he clipped the heel, it got exaggerated, and it looked absolutely terrible. And anyway,
but they're just all they're not going anywhere. The winner probably does what he does, and the first 2 ran second and third, get set up there, and all the ones out the back couldn't get in the race, and the favourite's probably the only one going anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the horses that had control of this race were 33s and 50s. I actually had something each one snip fit, but there you go. And they've used the track at that stage of the day to advantage, but they were collapsing back on top of the field late, so it's really very... The SPs there are far more useful than the...
I think when they're all half plotters, you might as well be up there.
Yeah. Anyway, so that'll do us for Caulfield. So something I did want to make note of, Trev. I noticed on Ralphie's Twitter there after the last race at Sandown last Wednesday, that one tweeter, I can't think who it was, I apologise for that, said that last year when we did the Enaja One Stakes special, I knocked on the head the nomination for Galaxy Raider. And my reason for doing that, because he in that racing season won a race at Echuca, I think it was, by 6 lengths. Now, I'd say that Galaxy Raider's on notice. He's got 2 weeks to the end of the season. If he can't win a race by then, he's straight into the Enaja One Stakes, I'd say, Galaxy Raider. He's building a very nice thief's profile.
I backed him at Bendigo at 550 or something, and not very often you see a horse had no chance of winning and got beat less than a length.
Yeah.
And then the other day, I unfortunately backed him early, and then the scratchings come out, and then there's no value, you don't really want to play, and then he got beat. So,
well, that race in itself is interesting. If punters might want to go back and have a look at that, I decided not to bet in the race. And I had Galaxy Raider top pick, but he's for me not a horse I could take even money about, right? But the next alternative was Dorvalton, right? And she's a get back, hit and hope type horse as well. All of a sudden they jump in that race, and there's Dorvalton sitting in the one by one. I'm thinking, how did that happen? So I'd love to. I mean, there was some very odd things happened last week, and Dorvalton sitting 1 by 1 was one of them. Like, whoever rode it, well done to you. Good job.
Dwayne, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Dwayne. He had a pretty good week, Dwayne. Sort of. Apart from now, he's having a holiday.
He needs one. He needed one. You can spend it now.
So I suppose we should have looked at some horses to follow there out of Caulfield. Trevor, was there any there?
Well, I suppose Saputo will keep going all right. Just depends what sort of class he runs in. Both the 2-year-olds went well. I think they produced good figures. They ran comparable times to the open class horses.
There was a 2-year-old in that race that I like. I thought its run was much better than it reads on paper. I think you pronounce it Chiyu. It was a Mick Price.
First starter?
First starter.
Okay.
I think it's got a race in it for sure. We missed the portion control race too as we're going through them.
They went fairly solid. They basically, if you convert its race in the 2,000 metre race, the first part of the race to 1,200 metres, they went the same pace and then ran, nearly 9 lengths quicker last 600 and 6 lengths quicker the last 200 than the 3-year-olds. So, that makes, I suppose, the 3-year-olds look even worse.
Yeah.
But it went sort of all right. It had gear change. I sort of tried to find it, got it rated up to its best, but couldn't get it as sure as the market. They just sort of have a knack of changing the gear and changing the riders sometimes. He rides quite well, that Corey Parrish.
Good gear change. It was in the spot you didn't want to be. It was 3 wide on pace the whole way. No cover. Like, that's a big spike for that horse. Like, it's a horse that's
going to a new,
really struggling to compete at City Grey, and all of a sudden it just puts a hole in him. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be expecting it to do that again. I'll be surprised if it does.
Bling Bling's, it was second or third up off, 18 months spell. Coldstone looked like it had enough. On Bacala's probably a wet tracker. And Show a Star, I didn't think it went as good as, I think it's better leading, but I don't think it went as good as what had been going. I had changed hands.
If there's a race next week or 2 weeks' time and Show a Star and Portion Control are both in it, I'll be keen to back Show a Star. Any other horses to follow?
Captain Obvious, Revolving Door. The horse that Alessi rode made a big ground at the end. Vol Chanson, just for, and it ran well at Geelong City, just for one of those, weak Friday races or something like that. I thought Mert de Flirt went good for a 1,400 metre race this prep, and might be sort of nice horse. And Beatnik's made ground, but I didn't really know the horse. He got back in it, so it just sort of depends where he settles again, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I got to say, I was impressed with the effort of the Tassie horse, whose name keeps escaping me. What's it called? Hot Dipped.
Well, they ran really quick. They ran the quickest last 200 of the day.
Yeah.
In that race.
It's not really a sprinter, that horse. He can get out in distance. So I don't know what he's going to do with it. But if he's does present into another Victorian race, I'll be interested in where Hot Dip goes.